Yeah, it's good to be back. And yeah, it's been a kind of crazy, a really crazy, at least out here and really worldwide, with weather events and these wildfires, and particularly in Lahaina, Maui, where an entire town of 12,000 perished. Uh, and it was pretty shocking to see that happen. Just to give coordinates of where I'm at, is the Hawaiian Islands. There's 8 islands. I'm on the island of Oahu. Oahu has the most people. We have over 1 million. We have a city here and everything, Honolulu. That's where I live. Next door, though, a little ways away, is Maui, and Maui is actually bigger in size and space, but it has multiple towns, and one of them was Lahaina, which was a very touristy town that a lot of people would go see. It's a historic town. It actually was the original capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii before they moved it to this island, and so there's a lot of historic value there. And uh, it's suddenly on August 8th, burned up in an inferno, and there's still an un they're still unsure on how many people are missing. There's a lot of missing children. We can talk about that. And there's a lot of things that happen there that are very questionable. And I can go along quite a few things here that'll kind of paint the picture and set the table. But yeah, it was a pretty shocking event. And now with that, we've had other events happen around up in Canada, Turkey, Greece, plus some flooding going on. So a lot of people don't realize that the elites that control our world also have the powers of God, and they can control our weather, and they can manipulate fires. They can make fires. They can do a lot of things with these huge toys they have, and a lot of people don't even know they exist. So for some people, it can be kind of a leap to go into that world, but I'm happy to walk people through it slowly and in a rational manner, and help people to understand the position we're really in on this planet. At the same time, never feeling discouraged, but only empowered by knowing this information. So anyway, that's a quick little synopsis of what is going on with that. But go ahead, guys. If you have questions, feel free to push them my way about these events here.
Yeah, so my understanding from the mainstream narrative is there was a drought in Maui, and then there was a hurricane or strong winds, which knocks over an electrical cable, which started the fires, and then the winds blew the fires out of control. Is that
Well, that is sort of the scenario. So when we say a hurricane, there was a hurricane hundreds of miles south of Hawaii. It didn't actually hit here. We had some winds from it, but the very interesting thing, the thing I noticed the day before, when they're saying, well, we're going to have high winds which might uh create wildfires. Well, I didn't think too much of it, but one thing that I thought was, so the winds, because the hurricane is south of the Hawaiian Islands, the winds would have been coming from the south. But for some strange reason, the winds were coming from the northeast, which is our normal flow of winds out here. We have what we call the trade winds, and they come from the northeast, and they bring the moisture into Hawaii, and they give us the majority of our rainfall, and that's the normal weather pattern. Well, it didn't change, yet the trade winds were ramped up really high. So they said there was a disturbance to the north of Hawaii that created this, but all I saw were winds, or felt were winds from the northeast. And so right there, that didn't make a lot of sense. I was like, why are they coming from the opposite direction of where they say the hurricane is? And well, I didn't think a whole lot of it. I thought, well, maybe they know what they're talking about. I'm just, I just didn't look into it. This is the day before the fires. And then when the day the fire the day of the fires, I noticed this strange haze in the air, and I thought that's kind of weird. What is that? Is that salt spray from the ocean, or is it smoke? Didn't really know. Uh, but it wasn't like chemtrails. It wasn't like, I had my eyes open for those. They weren't spraying in the atmosphere. So I was just thinking this is weird, but whatever. But once I got home that day, this was Tuesday, August 8th, my neighbor came out of her house and showed me, did you hear about Maui? And I was like, no, not really. I heard there's some fires. That's not all. But then she showed me the whole town burning down. I'm like, oh my God. So this is serious. So I don't know if this is a new technology or not, or what happened, but that haze may have been some kind of fire accelerant that was maybe sprayed. I mean, I'm just going on conjecture here, but the winds and that haze were the two anomalies I noticed. But when we get into the actual pre-fire, I think it's important to understand a couple of things. One of them is our Governor Josh Green, who is a sold out big pharma operative. He's he was the one who brought the vaccine passports here during COVID, and this guy is working for the dark side. Anyway, he was on vacation. He just happened to be on vacation, and we've seen this before in many events where the main person that in charge just happens to be gone. Well, not only that, the mayor of Maui, and so how it works out here in Hawaii, we have the governor of the state, and each island has a mayor, and the mayor is in charge of the government on each island. So the mayor of Maui is also on vacation. Okay, so and school was canceled due to the high winds. Now, I've been out here where we've had bad storms and they didn't cancel school. And I found that kind of strange. But just to add even more, there were fire marshals that in the town of Lahaina just happened to be out of town that night. And new insurance companies took out new policies before the fire. So you have all these crazy things, and then you have this smart city conference planned later this year, and Maui has been slated as a place they want to start smart cities. So these are all pretty big red flags. These are all interesting things to take note of pre-fire. And then one more thing is who the Maui chief of police is a guy named John Pelletier. That's his name. And he was also the police chief, if you guys remember, the Vegas shootings years back. Was it like 2017 or so? Las Vegas had shootings, and he happened to be the police chief during that too. And we know that story was fabricated as well. People have done great research on that story. So here's this same figurehead they've put in place in Maui, I think on purpose for the event that was about to take place. So you have all those things at the beginning of before the fire that all need to be considered and looked at.
So before the podcast, you mentioned that a lot of children are still missing.
Yes.
And you mentioned then that they cancelled school.
Yeah.
The day of the fires.
Yeah. And so they were home. And a lot of people are saying about 2,000 kids are missing. And the mainstream news is saying, oh, only like 200 people died in that fire. And I find that hard to believe. And so there are theories, and we can talk about this in a little bit about how the alternative media can get out of hand as well. But there are theories that they were taken away in school buses, and there's some evidence to look at that, but who knows exactly. But whatever the case is, so many people died in this fire, and this could have been prevented. So I guess as we move along the story, the fire erupts in the end. There are some people that say it was started by an electrical fire. It's possible, but it seems like it behaved a lot different than a regular fire. But the important thing to note is they blocked people from leaving the town. So here we have the police blocking off the main road out, and they wouldn't let anybody in or out. And people in this long line of traffic got incinerated in their cars. Uh, and so they were just following orders, which is one of the worst things in our society, is people who just follow orders without question. And we have a lot of that, and that's why we have wars. I mean, you can put that on many things in our society, people just following orders. Well, here's, cops that are blocking the road, while there's and the water was shut off too, by the way. So there was no water for the fire hydrants, and yet the electricity was still on. So that's pretty crazy. Now, one thing that we have out in Hawaii is what we call the civil defense system. Basically, what it is an alarm system that lets off once a month our fire drill. So that would be like the first business day of every month. It sounds like an air raid, and what it's for is for natural disasters, tsunamis. If you look on the website, it states it's for tsunamis, hurricanes, floods, wildfires. And so the alarm was not set off. And that is also a big red flag, because I've been in situations years back. I was dating a girl that lived near the ocean, and we had a tsunami watch warning. They thought we were going to get a tsunami because an earthquake happened somewhere in the world. And so the cops came through the neighborhood with bullhorns and said everybody has to get to higher ground, as well as the alarm system went off. So you think of that, and then you look at what happened on Maui. Why didn't they do the alarm? And the excuse that the person in charge said is that he didn't want everybody to run toward the mountains, because that's where the fire might be more, he didn't want people to get confused that it was a tsunami. But we all know out here that they use that alarm system for more than tsunamis. And if they had if the police would have actually gone through and bullhorned everybody, a lot of lives would have been saved. So you could blame it on negligence. And I would say Hawaii does have a lot of negligence. Hawaii's not a place that's very organized. I mean, we have a very, it's like Hawaii had to become civilization, so it did, and people didn't really like out here, things don't work real smooth. So you could blame it all on that, but I highly doubt it, considering all the other facts surrounding this, that I just have a hard time believing it's all negligence, because they know the drill. They know that system, and people just burned alive in this. And so, yeah, I mean, the reaction to the fires is the other big red flag in this, besides some of the pre-fire stuff, is the reaction to why they didn't let anybody leave Lahaina, and why they didn't have any alarm or any sort of warning for the people to get out. And so it appears like they were just following orders, but who was giving these orders? We have to look at why they operated the way they did. And it certainly seems very suspicious, as we can get into in a little while here, the anomalies with the actual fire. But yeah, that was just really crazy to see that they didn't even have an alarm or anything.
What was the reason for them not allowing anybody to leave? What reason did they give?
Well, that's it. They just said they were following orders. That's just what their orders were.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And
So
nobody higher seniors answered that question.
not really, no. They just they figured that they were keeping the people safe is what they thought they were doing, because they figured that their uppers were telling him exactly what the best thing is, and obviously it wasn't the best thing. And I don't know how these cops can live with themselves right now. I mean, um I wouldn't be surprised if one of them, they suicided themselves, because I mean, how many lives that were killed? And then you got to question, who were these officers? I don't know who they were. They could have been not our actual officers. And a lot of these situations, they do bring in these actors. You've heard of it before, and it's quite possible. I used to not buy into the crisis actor thing, but the more I've looked into it, the more it seems possible, especially with the Maui police chief being the same chief from the Vegas shootings.
Did any of those police officers die, or is there any reports of any of them dying?
No, no, I don't think so. No. Yeah, but the head of security for the alarm system resigned immediately. So
When you talk about the pre-fire, and one of the things you mentioned was a meeting regarding smart cities um, in Hawaii. What's your reason to believe that these wildfires are connected to smart cities?
well, one of them is that this is, first of all, this property, Lahaina, is valuable for elites. Let's talk about Maui for a sec too before we get into that. Maui is where a lot of the rich elites, like Oprah, like Jeff Bezos, like quite a few people. I can't think of some of the other people. I know Lady Gaga has property there. A lot of them have gone there. I would say it's our second prettiest island out here. It's a pretty nice island. There's a lot of different, very diverse, different climates on it, and it's quite a unique island. But that property is very valuable, and locals have held on to it for years. And so, because they've held on to it for years, these elites have had no way of acquiring that property. But excuse me, um, these new insurance things and policies have come in. I think it was the governor who signed this in, that said that in the case of a natural disaster, that the government can seize that land. And so that is also a red flag too, I think, because they could take this this property and use it for whatever they like. So with the idea that a lot of these elites live on Maui, Maui is the most sold out island, in my opinion, in many ways. I mean, no offense to the people who live there, but as far as like the amount of locals there, there's very few. It reminds me of a suburb of California somewhere in a lot of places. When I go to the other islands, I still feel like there's locals, but there's not. So it has been taken over, very gentrified. And what was your question? Why do I think that these are slated for smart cities, or
Well,
what was it exactly?
what do you believe the connection between let's call them man-made wildfires to their plans of setting up smart cities within Hawaii?
Yeah, well, and I'm not certain, but like for they did want to do a smart city conference, and they do want to, put Maui on the list of places for smart cities. And it's interesting to note that these fires have been happening in places where they want to put smart cities. For example, a while back, there was the Paradise, California fires, and they wanted to put this high-speed train through that whole area. Well, now they have the chance. They haven't, but it's just that the elites can seize land like this, and I think that's their idea, is to take land, and then that is less places for people to live. And maybe the bigger picture, some people might think, is to keep on burning out places to where people are forced to live in these smart cities because they don't have any other choice, as the world goes more and more like that. But they have a lot of work to do, because it's nowhere near that right now. I mean, where I live, I can't even imagine this area becoming a smart city, or even a 15-minute city, but they do want to do that. I mean, and we're on an agenda here. 2030 is the agenda, and they are ramping it up. And as I talked about in the last interview with you guys about climate change, this is one of the things that unifies the globe. This is the thing that they can try to get everybody on the same page with. And I think why they're doing these fires, and we'll get into more of possibilities of how they're doing them, but why they're doing these fires is to also show people, to convince people that we need to give up our freedoms and live differently, because climate change is out of control and it's rampant now. And so they're pushing this climate change with their weather weapons, and it always has been. The real climate change is with chemtrails, HARP, and all these different ionospheric heaters and their toys that are messing with our environment. It's not that the actual climate is really changing, and plus the climate's always changing because planet Earth always has cycles as is. So I mean, there's a lot to that. I could, I don't know if I said this on your last show, but I guess if people need to hear it again, where climate change came from is a document by the Club of Rome. And I don't know, did I go over this on your last show? I can't even remember.
I don't think we went into depth. I think you mentioned it, though.
All right, well, let me just read you guys something real quick here. And it's just a little blurb from the Club of Rome in 1971 document. And it talks about, this is the very beginning. And back in these days, they were telling people that the Earth is going to go to a new ice age. So all their predictions have been wrong. New York was supposed to be underwater by 2015, and so their track record is terrible. So I think a lot of people are starting to see that, but they're really trying to ramp this climate change up because they can unite the world under one thing. Just like COVID, this is the other one that they're using that is going to be able to, unite the world. So here it is. So this is called The Limits of Growth. It's a 1971 book. And this is a little blur from it here. It says, the common enemy to humanity is man. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All of these dangers are caused by human intervention, and it is only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself. We believe humanity requires a common motivation, namely a common adversary, in order to realize one world government. It does not matter if this enemy is a real one or one invented for the purpose. So, that's like, they're just telling you right there, they doesn't matter if it's a real one or one invented for the purpose. So that's where this whole thing came from. And when you go to that, you think about it, then, people don't know that. And it's important to know where this came from. And it's important to understand that they're changing the weather all the time with these programs and messing up the weather. I mean, yeah, the weather is weird. Everybody can agree with that. But if you don't understand that they have the powers of God, or they think they do, then they can, manipulate the weather in such a way that people will go, oh, yeah, climate is changing. We got to do something now. Okay, we'll give up our freedoms. We'll all drive electric cars and get carbon credit points and all that shit. And that's just the beginning. They want the world to be like China. They and beyond that, really. So right now they're working on getting the rest of the world caught up to that. And since COVID, they have been pushing all these various things to get us QR coding and cashless society and 5G and all that stuff since COVID. And it was an excuse to roll out this tech. So it's the agenda is pretty heavy right now, and I think more and more people are waking up to it.